directly into the core of the matter today, or our subject matter, which is have an engagement on scholarships. We have a fantastic panel, all very well known to me. Let me begin with Dr. Sheila Sintoya Memusi. It was always a tongue twister, as you can imagine. She was my classmate in the university. We did commerce together. Today she's a doctor. She will be sharing with us experiences drawn from the university, Strathmore, from Manchester in the UK, and from Germany. And then let me also introduce to you my good friend, Dr. Mumbi Vashira, who was, I think, just a year or two behind me in campus. She will also be sharing her experiences, basically from her time in campus here and her time at St. Gallen in Switzerland. And then last but not least, my very good friend and family advocate, tax consultant, Bwana Oleparanta Edward, who's an alumnus of Strathmore University, specifically from the law school, who was my colleague also at that law school, and who will be sharing with us experiences from the United States of America, more specifically from Harvard and from our own law school here. So I just want to put a small note to Anita, my colleague, to be admitting as we carry on. I've been admitting, and then we dive straight into it. So should we just begin by hearing from Dr. Sheila Sintoya Memusi? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey so far, your career. I mean, from whichever perspective you want to put it, but just tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
How much of my journey do you want to hear? Where do I start?
Well, basically, you can combine a bit of your education and career together so that we can try and see. And the idea is more or less to identify parts that you've worked that some of our participants could actually have worked also or are aspiring to work very soon. So carry on.
Okay, so maybe I should start with how I got myself to Strathmore.
Indeed.
When I did join Strathmore, as in when I came in, I was very focused on having a career in HR. So that's what I had in mind. So I came in for my interviews. Yeah, I did too. Another story. So anyway, so I came in and checked. So and I remember talking to a now faculty member. She was an admin assistant then. And I told her how I was interested in HR, but I don't see it as an option, you know, under BCom back then. And she was like, don't worry, by the time you get to third year, we'll have HR as an option, which of course did not happen. But then, I mean, I took her word for it because that's one of the things I learned at Strathmore, you know, to trust people that, you know, people are there to care for you, to assist you, to show you the way. And I like that because I had no reason to doubt her. Not that I do now. So that's how I came in wanting to do HR. And I thought I was very bright. I could do ACCA as well. But I thank God I never took that path because accounting was never a good subject for me. Anyway, so that's how I got in there. I wanted to do HR. Then, of course, I do year 1, year 2. And year 3, we had a unit on development studies. And then microfinance was introduced as a major. And that's where I would say my career took shape. That was the defining moment. And that's why I find myself where I am today doing public policy research. Because it was, I mean, microfinance then was this big thing, like, you know, changing lives, inspiring women, you know, small daily activities, like how transformative this could be, that it has this bottom-up approach, and our policymakers are very much excited and, you know, investing in this idea of microfinance. And that's how then I thought, okay, microfinance sounds interesting. I might want a career in microfinance. But then I was very curious about this whole theme of poverty, because it was all about poverty, overcoming poverty, lifting women out of poverty, because of course microfinance is very much focused on women. And I just did a simple Google search for master's programs in poverty and development. And I took the first course that came up, that was the University of Manchester. And I was very excited, very motivated. And by the end of semester 1 in 4th year, I applied and they gave me a conditional acceptance because of course I didn't have my degree and all of that. And I was very excited and you're feeling very proud that I've managed to do this, but then came the big issue of, so yeah, you have an acceptance, so how do you do this? Because of course my parents are not going to be able to finance this. And it is here that I really tapped into the thing that has helped me so far, and that's the networks that one has. Because I was in Strathmore back then and I was very active in COP. And part of COP, being part of COP, we really worked together with the communications department. And one of the key people we're working with was Eric Katenya. And he's the person I went to. I was like, I need to write a very moving motivational letter because that's the only way I'm going to get a scholarship. And I did write one, but of course you write in such a way that you want to appear like you know what you're doing, you're confident, but then you end up writing something that's not personal. Like it sounds like a project proposal, just write things because, I have these qualifications, I want to do this because I want to help people, I want to transform lives. And there, Eric helped me sort of bring out, or rather put into perspective, this whole education and career goals you have and tie them to you as a person. How is you as, let me speak for myself. So this is Sheila's dream, but I want to know Sheila and connect Sheila to the dream that she's, presenting to me as the scholarship provider to be able to, assist or fund or support. And that's also a key thing that I apply today, that yeah, you might have these fantastic ideas, but you need to also be very honest with yourself because you're asking someone to invest in you and you're also investing your time. So you need to be honest with yourself to the extent of, for what reason am I pursuing this? Why am I doing this? And what do I seek to achieve? Because we every once in a while get into projects that exhaust us because they really did not come from a place of you're being attached to it with you as a person and the goal you're seeking to pursue, which is also one thing I have learned along the way. So that's how I ended up writing my very, I like to think, brilliant motivational letter. I look at it these days and I wonder why I had the guts to actually put all these things, because it's like a love letter to a funding organization, because you're like, I have this dream, I am coming from this is where I want to go, this is where you and I can work together, and please just see the beauty of what I'm presenting to you. I'm opening my heart to you, and we can do this together. I am worth your time and I'm worth your investment. And so that's the letter I wrote, and that's how I got the Chevening scholarship, and I went to the University of Manchester. And so I tried to be faster after that. And I did, so I got into the world of development studies and policy, and I have to admit I was lost because I had a very little in terms of background into development and policy making from a BCom. Like all I did was just development studies as a unit and microfinance. So I was a bit lost, and by the time I was done with that course, I was like, academia is not for me. It's fine, that was a good journey, interesting, I have learned a lot, but I'm done. And I was okay, and I left and I came back home. I worked at an NGO for a while. No, actually, yeah, maybe I should dwell a bit there. So I worked at an NGO, and it was very exciting because I was thinking I'm coming to apply all this stuff I have learned. But it ended up being a bit frustrating because you have ideas. I think it's much of what many of us find ourselves in every once in a while, maybe not for you at Strathmore, that you have ideas that you wish to, share, you have this vision, but then nobody around you seems to support it. And it gets very frustrating because I'm thinking, I put so much effort into this master's program. I think we could do these things differently, but then it's not working out. And at that point I thought, well, okay, I need to have a conversation with myself. Like, so this is what I want. And I need to invest more in this whole policy development path. And I thought, okay, since I'm here, I'm not fulfilled professionally, I might as well try to do something about it. And I took advantage of the not very good working conditions to work on my PhD proposal. And I wrote one and I finished and I submitted one. And then, of course, back to the whole struggle of finding a scholarship, because then a PhD is a whole different ballgame. You're asking for funding for 3 or 4 years. And yeah, I remember first I got admitted to the University of Edinburgh, and I had to defer my studies because I didn't find a scholarship. So I deferred for 1 year. And I wanted to now, in the second year, of course, no scholarship either. So I thought, okay, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. Maybe this is not meant for me. But then again, tapping back to the network. So in my frustrations, of course, I talked to a colleague and I was like, so this is happening. I'm looking to do this, but I don't think it's happening. I'm not being very successful because I had applied to every other scholarship possible. You know, like every day you see scholarship pop-ups and you're thinking, yeah, this is it. So applying, and nothing, like not even a reject. Like, we received your application, but I don't know, we have too many applications and unfortunately, try next time, nothing. So I had almost given up. Then I talked to a colleague and she was like, but why are you so focused on going to the UK? I was like, yeah, that's the environment I know, it's familiar, and considering my struggles in the master's, during my master's studies, I think I understand that environment better. Then she was like, no, push yourself, try to look at things from a different perspective, try new environments. You never know, they might work for you. And what environment did she propose? Germany. I was like, okay, Germany. I checked, and the only program I knew was DAD, that's the government scholarship. And it was, though you read and you pre-disqualify yourself. And I was like, no, this one I will not make it, which is a thing I have to admit I am almost very good at, of pre-disqualifying myself. You read qualifications, you're thinking, no, that's not for me, which I would encourage people to not do. Like, for lack of a better word, jichoche, because you have nothing to lose. So when you see something and it looks like it's a bit out of your reach, but it's on your path, I would say go for it, try it, because you never know. But anyway, I pre-disqualified myself from DAD, and then she told me, but you are a Catholic, try the scholarship program. So the Conference of Catholic Bishops here in Germany have a scholarship program. So I tried. And yeah, that's how I ended up doing my PhD. Even though I have to admit, applying for that school, I wasn't very much psyched, because you've applied for millions of scholarships, and then this scholarship comes and they ask you, oh, fill this form, then we will get back to you. And I thought, okay, this sounds very unserious. Who asks people to fill a Word document and send it to them, and then they will get back to you? But then I was like, well, nothing to lose. So I sent it, and it was my blessing. So, being a Catholic paid off, because I got that scholarship, and we are where we are today. So that's as far as scholarships goes. So in summary, I would say, like, talk to people who know things better than you do. Like, do not be afraid to share your dream. Of course, we are always told you'll share with some haters as well, who will bring you down. But that's also very important to note. But also, it's time to filter your friends and filter the people in your networks. Of course, you don't tell your dreams to anyone and everyone. You have different people in your life for different purposes. So know who to approach for what information you're seeking. And in line with that, just don't be afraid to share. Like, sometimes you sit and you think, I want to do this, maybe I'm overreaching, maybe this is not for me. But I mean, if it's in your head, then it's there. Like, let it grow, invest in it, invest in yourself, believe in yourself, talk to people, do not be afraid to share your ideas, and do not be afraid to fail. I mean, you will fail 3 times, maybe the 4th or the 5th time will be the time when you're successful. So yeah, and be very honest, because when you're facing these people in the scholarship interview panel, you can't be selling something that you do not believe in. So be sure that what you're presenting to people, you believe in yourself and you actually invest it, because then it makes it very easy to sell your vision to these people. Because if you're trying to remember, oh, how did I think I should present this so that it sells better, so that I'm found to be a worthy candidate, I think it becomes a bit problematic. But if you're honest with yourself, with where you're coming from, what you have, what you want to achieve, then it's very easy to present it, and you don't need to do a lot of work convincing people that, I'm worth the investment. So thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Dr. Sheila. Quite intriguing. I will be coming back to you with some questions, some follow-up questions, and certainly also from the panel. And also from the audience. But now that we've heard from Sheila on her experiences in Kenya, in Germany, and in the UK, or in the UK and then in Germany, maybe let's hear from Mumbi, Dr. Mumbi Vashira, on her experiences from Kenya, Switzerland, and elsewhere. Thank you, Dr. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and thank you everybody who has joined in, and also to Sheila and Edward for joining this discussion. So again, I'll also start my journey, because when they said, tell us about your journey, I was wondering how far back. So it's good we now know it's from Strathmore. So when I finished high school, the thing is I didn't do business studies. So I did art and design, which I enjoyed a lot. And I was actually called for that at Jomo Kenyatta. And I knew I would be, because the grade I had was really good in art. Yeah. But then now, when I finished, the question was, okay, I mean, what career am I going to build as an artist? And there was that question mark, just because of how our artistic market is and was at the time. I mean, that was like, 2007. So it was way back, and I think things have improved now, but it's still a challenge. So now I had to be very realistic. So I said, okay, probably after talking to people, because you do have to talk to people, talk to your parents, your friends, people who have your best interests at heart, and just ask them for advice. So after talking to them, I figured, okay, at least a business degree is quite broad, and there are many options that I can pursue. So I thought, okay, then which university? So I was thinking Catholic University. Even when I was coming to Strathmore, I thought this is just my backup option. But when I came, somehow I just felt, hey, I like this place. So very, kind of coincidentally, I just applied, I got in, decided to join, had really, good experiences, especially in my first and second year. Built great friendships, people who are still my friends today, and who feel like brothers and sisters. So that was a really, really good experience. And you have to know, I mean, some people here, especially if you're still in Strath, you have so many resources available to you. Back then, we just had literally the old building in phase 1 and the library. So there wasn't much, excitement, but it was still so great because of the people and the faculty, of course. So now coming to the issue, because as Sheila has mentioned about the majors, because I'd not done business studies, I didn't even know what am I going to major in. So at the end of second year now, again, I had that crisis, because everybody is going into finance, but for me, I was like, okay, fine. I was a generally good student overall. But then I thought, okay, but where is my strength? So I literally just took the transcripts and I looked and I saw that I had really good accounting grades. Yeah. I was not doing ACC or CPA, I had people doing those things, but I just looked at it and so I have good grades here. So it makes sense to then major in it. And that's what I usually tell people whenever we give the talk on, transitioning from your second year to your third and fourth year where you specialize. You have to have a very honest conversation with yourself and just figure out where is your strength, what will you be able to handle so that you can graduate with a good degree, because the grades you get do matter, when you're making these applications elsewhere. So that I think was a really good decision, I have to say. So I did my major in accounting. We were less than 20 people only majoring in accounting purely. Yeah, so I didn't double major, I just took a minor of finance and mixed in other units and graduated. So now after we graduated, now there's this question of, again, what next? What am I going to do? And I remember as we were in our third and fourth year especially, I saw that there seemed to be some faculty who were much younger than the rest. And I went and asked them, some of them who are even now very good friends, how are you working here? I mean, are you like full-time faculty? So it turned out that they were, what we call graduate assistants. So they were doing their masters, but they were also assisting lecturers to facilitate courses. And I thought, hey, this looks interesting. And again, it helps one to do your master's, because in that program, Strathmore would fund your master program, and you're also getting your teaching and research experience. So again, that was after we finished, it turned out that they issued a call for people to apply. I applied, obviously, as I'm looking for other jobs, went for all the typical interviews, KPMG, PwC, Ernst & Young, everything, you know, just applying massively. And I have to say, one thing people have to prepare for is, you know, that process. Yeah, it helps to also ask people, what is that process of application, so that you can already start, you know, getting what you need ready. So for example, you know, the proficiency tests, or I'm just losing the word, but like the things that test your ability to think critically and logically, is something that you shouldn't underestimate, because it will come as part of the interview. So we did that. I got accepted, started doing my Masters of Commerce in Strathmore, working in SMC. So it's now SBS, but that's the School of Management and Commerce. So I started teaching accounting units, literally thrown in, you know, just fundamentals of accounting 1, together with, you know, the faculty at the time. And I just kind of learned on my feet. And here's the thing, that, you know, I was doing accounting not because I wanted to be an accountant. It's just because I was good at it, and I genuinely enjoyed it, because I've always found accounting like a puzzle that has to be solved. So if you like solving puzzles, chances are you may like accounting. But the thing is, I still had other interests, and my interests mostly centered around business responsibility. So I've always been a person who, you know, pushes for fairness in everything. And I've always felt that institutions, especially businesses, have a responsibility to the societies they work in. So now the question was, okay, how does accounting come in there? So from now asking, you know, also the person I was working with at the time, who was Professor Wangombe, to talking to him, we realized, oh, but there's this stream of accounting which is ecological and social, and it's called sustainability accounting and reporting. So that's what I did my research in. And I think I wrote a good document, but I don't know if it was that good based on the grade I got, but I knew it was good because I put my heart in it. Then I finished, you know, at the same time also working with people who, again, have become, you know, really good friends over the years. And then I finished. So now the thing was, okay, what next? Do you want to continue teaching? I knew I liked teaching, you know. So the thing was, okay, then what do you need to do to just get the final stamp? So you need to get a PhD. So I knew I needed to apply for a PhD. The question was how and where. So I was thinking, should I do it locally? You know, there's a PhD program at Strathmore, but then again, I'm like, it would be good to get another, you know, experience. And this is where I think, as Sheila said, you need to tap into the networks. So it turned out that our school had some MOUs out there. So these are arrangements with, you know, other institutions abroad. And one of them turned out to be the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. So they wanted, you know, a member of faculty to go there and do the PhD. And we were also willing for somebody from that side to come to SMC and do their PhD there, or part of it. And as it turned out, some months prior to me finishing my Masters of Commerce, there had actually been, you know, somebody who had come to do his research in Strathmore. So he was from St. Gallen. So that conversation started now. Okay, so if I'm to apply, what do they need? Does it have funding? So the University of St. Gallen was willing to, you know, help with building the application, but the funding had to come from elsewhere. So the first step was, okay, what is needed for this application? And as Sheila has said, you need a very good motivation letter. The other issue is also that for a PhD, you need to identify a supervisor. So that was also another thing, because they said, who in our school or in our list of professors do you think can supervise your PhD? So you need to create what we call a concept note, which I think some members of staff may be aware of, which is just a summary of your main research idea. Then you need a motivation letter to say why you know, and it needs to be personal. And then you need to suggest the person or set of people who you can work with from that university. So that was a really intense process. And I really have to say that I got a lot of support from the University of St. Gallen. So there was a contact person there who literally would go through with a fine-tooth comb my application and provide the harshest critique, you know, I've had in my life. But it was so good because you get to, you know, make a really good application. So I applied and then I got that. But now the second thing was, again, you get to the point where you're saying, okay, what about the funding? This, you know, life in Europe is very expensive, and so is the degree. So it turns out that the Swiss government gives scholarships to people who are in African, Asian, and Eastern European countries. Yeah, and it's specifically targeted for people who are under, I think, 35. So I thought, okay, this can be a good option. But then again, they have their set of requirements as well. So again, the University of St. Gallen helped there with saying, okay, this is more or less the people who have had this scholarship, even putting me in touch with somebody who had received this scholarship, applying with them. So it was quite, I would say, something that you will more or less be likely to do parallel, because you will apply to the university, you'll apply for the funding. Sometimes they're connected, many times they're separate. So I think one has to figure out what is needed, and if possible, to speak to people who have gone through that experience. So that's how I got there. What was the experience like? Although I think we'll touch on this as we go, but what I felt was, when you're thinking of going abroad, and I think it has been brought out also by Sheila, you know, you have an idea of where you want to go and why you're going. Yeah, so for me, I really didn't know much about Switzerland. I'd always thought if I go abroad, it will be the typical United States, UK, or Australia. So now you're in a different environment. One thing you have to do is, I wish I had done before, is more research about the place you're going, the town you're going to, the culture there, because you find that even language, you know, most people there are speaking in German. So you're already, you know, in a place where you don't understand the language. Even if your program is in English, you don't understand the geography, you don't understand the political system. And as I think others will say, if it comes up later, is that all of a sudden I realized, oh yeah, I'm a Black person, I'm African. So, and that comes with other things. So that's the journey. You know, we can talk more about that, but those are some of the considerations that you have to make. But the emphasis I'll really put forward is that you must be authentic. You must come out as an individual in those applications. Yeah, don't just look for grandiose or, you know, extravagant ways of expressing yourself. Just make sure that who you are comes through in the application. That's the summary. Thank you.
Whoa, fantastic, Dr. Mumbi. We are all listening quite keenly and following, and certainly enjoying all that we are learning from you. At this point, even as I'm getting a lot of questions in my inbox, I've started to distribute some of them, so you can really start thinking about them. But at this point, I would love to invite my good friend, Bwana Edward Ritei Paranta, to share his experience from Strathmore, from the States, from Harvard. People are tuned in to more or less learn from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin, Sheila, and Mumbi. It's an honor to take part in this process and to be of help to other of our friends who might be thinking of this process. My journey Let me start off from Strathmore. Like most of the people who join Strathmore through CPA, I joined to do accounting, but I knew in my mind that I was gonna go to the University of Nairobi. We had a very good lecturer by the name of Jim McPhee. I think at the time it coincided when the law school was just beginning, the pioneer class. So the interviews were being done. So he popped a question in class that if you're interested in law, they're currently interviewing students. Why don't you apply? Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is the money. That cost is, of course, was out of proportion. Yeah. So I decided to take a leap of faith, just put in my application. Yeah. But I was very clear with my interviewers that if I don't get a scholarship, it's not even on the table. I wouldn't consider it because, of course, my parents at the time would not afford that. So at the time, I was lucky. The interview process for the pioneer class was a bit rigorous, but there were a few scholarships that were already on the table. Yeah, and at the time, I think there was Kiva. Kiva was offering some sort of quasi grant loan sort of arrangements. Yeah. So after I did the interviews, was lucky to get in. The next stage was the financing. How will I be able to afford this? That's when I was introduced to the Kiva office, there's an application process again that you go through, which I commenced. All this, it's if, there's that big if I get in. But I always, of course, I had another backup of, job process. So luckily, I got the Kiva quasi loan scholarship, and I was able to join the law school as part of the pioneer class. This was very exciting. Of course, we came in being given laptops was a big deal for us at the time, and of course, it went a long way. The fact that we were a small class, we were about 70 of us. The gelling and the unity within the group was quite on another level. So once I went in, at around third year is when my passion, I got a clear mind of what I wanted to do. At the time, we had a very good lecturer in tax law by the name Miss Catherine Mutava. I knew I wanted to do law. I was gonna be a general, legal practitioner, but I wasn't clear which area of law that I should specialize in. Yeah. So when we had this lady come teach us a unit called tax law, I was decided that this is what I want to do. So of course, I'll do what everyone who's interested in a subject will do, go deep further, study on the subject, try and find ways of assisting the lecturer, sort of to get an avenue to acquaint yourself more with the area. I did that. There was the Strathmore Tax Research Center. So I would assist on an on and off basis. We graduated fourth year, and the key question then was, what should I do next? There's the Strathmore Tax Research Center here that I've been doing quite a lot of good work. But the key thing in my research, because there was a lot of research work that we were churning out, yeah, I would come across quite some, heavy jargon, some of the reports that were coming from serious institutions like the OECD. And I was, I knew I had already done my taxation unit or course, but I knew that I did not have the knowledge or the understanding to, authoritatively comment on some of the issues that we were coming across in our research. So there is when I decided I needed further education in the area of tax law or taxation as a practice. Now, as everyone else, the next question that you then think of is when. The timing is really crucial because here you finished your fourth year. For us lawyers, we have an animal called the Kenya School of Law, and you're thinking, should I go to the Kenya School of Law, or should I go straight to apply for the master's programs? And of course, timing is really crucial for me. The deciding factor was I was afraid that the longer I waited, the harder it will be because, there are various obligations that come as you stay along. Yeah. So I thought it would be prudent, to just finish the Kenya School of Law and go for it. Now, it varies for everyone, yeah? Someone else might think that I would get the best out of a master's program or further education with a little experience, you know? With a little experience, I would really get more out of it. So I ended up, I made the decision to stay, you know, to work at Strathmore Law School. There were graduate assistant positions that were available then. I interviewed. Luckily, the good Kevin Mushemi was one of our managers then, and I was lucky to get the opportunity. Now, this was, of course, a really key opportunity. One, because there are a lot of resources within the law school, which as a student, maybe I would not have known of. But given that I had an extra 1.5 year that I stayed there, I was able, one, to gel with the lecturers. And don't take it for granted, some of the lecturers really have a lot of connects and a lot of, they know a lot that they can point you in the right direction. We had other colleagues who are former graduate assistants who are really influential in terms of the application process for me. So the next thing I did was to map out, I know I want to specialize in tax. What are the best programs that are there in the world insofar as tax is concerned? Of course, I knew that, I'm applying to the best programs. I don't know whether I'll get in, but at least I'd give it a shot. Take it that, what's the worst that can happen? If you knock at a door, it will either be opened or, it will be shut, but at least you'll have knocked at the door, yeah? So that's when I mapped out the key, universities that have the best programs in tax. And at the time in the US, there were two, NYU and Harvard, and in Europe, it was Leiden. The next question is, okay, I need to put in an application, to convince these people to take me. And one of the lecturers told me, just think about it this way. You're trying to convince someone with less than 750 words to give you 9 million Kenya shillings. Because, some of these programs are pretty costly, especially in the US, further learning is pretty pricey. In the UK as well, it's pretty pricey. It's not pocket change. You need to think about it, that in very minimal words, what is it that you'll tell that person to take you over the next person who's also applying? Because there are many people who apply. And of course, there are two styles which we can discuss of later. At first, I structured my application, talking about me. I come from this background, and I found it to be not so convincing. Like I was struggling to sell myself as the background I've come in, and that's when one of the former graduate assistants gave me an idea. Why don't you write about your interest? Yeah, write about your interest. It's still you, but only that you're approaching it differently. So that's when I wrote about my interest in tax and connected it with how this scholarship or this opportunity to study in these universities would mean to me. Of course, I ended up narrowing down. I did not apply to the three of them. I only applied to one. It's a long story. So at the time when the applications collided, I was already in the Kenya School of Law. And around August, that's when we are really at the helm of our preparations for the Kenya School of Law exam. And it's pretty hectic. And still I had work to do. And I was torn in, of course you have to pay, I had to pay for my Kenya School of Law program as well. So cost was also a factor. So in the end, I ended up deciding that, well, let me go for the best shot and put in all my energy into it, yeah? So Kevin was and the financial aid office, and it might help to mention this. They do have a program that does assist students as well as graduate assistants in fashioning the applications. That was helpful for me, as well as other graduate assistants that you have in your respective schools. They do help you in terms of crafting your application. Now, the second bit is, of course, the cost. Some of these programs do have a cost that you have to pay as an application fee, as well as, you need to mail it. In fact, the financial aid office were helpful enough to give us and my other graduate assistants the application fee over and above mailing our application to the respective units. So just an appreciation to Kevin and the financial aid office. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is for anyone else who's currently at Strathmore, you need to think of these resources because they are there for a reason and they are at your disposal. You need to use them, yeah? Luckily, so I moved on. I finished the Kenya School of Law and I had to do my pupillage program, which is sort of a requirement for most lawyers if you wanted to practice. So I joined a firm by the name of Hamilton, Harrison and Matthews, currently renamed as Denton. So that's where I did my pupillage. Around March, that's when I got the, it's really a long wait, to get that email, whether you've gotten in or not. So when it came in, of course, I was overjoyed. It was a dream too far to come true. And I went, luckily, and of course, I can mention later, the interactions you get out of these places really matter a lot. And many people apply to these programs to different reasons. There are those who go there as a career shift. You've gone in, you are a lawyer, but you've chosen not to apply for an LLM program. You choose to apply for an MSc or something. It's a career shift. It's a launching pad for something else. Or you decide to do an MBA, for example. So people do it for different reasons, career shift. Others do it to deepen their knowledge. In this case, for me, it was deepening the knowledge. And last but not least is it's a card that will open some doors. It might not get you a seat at the table, but it will at least give you, it will open the doorway, or at least it will give you the door. So yeah, thank you so much. How about you, Kevin?
Whoa, thank you very, very, very much, Bwana Paranta. Thank you very much, Dr. Vashira. Thank you very much, Dr. Memusi. It's really quite engaging, and we're learning quite a bit so far. I think there are a number of questions I've already shared with you, but I also have received questions that more or less might need to be addressed by myself and my colleagues in the financial aid office as regards applying to scholarships for undergraduate programs or for professional programs or diploma programs in Strathmore University. Yeah, so I'll be addressing that shortly. Maybe before I do so, I'd like to more or less get a feel of some of the follow-up ideas that could help really enrich what we have so far discussed. And I'd like to more or less go to Dr. Memusi to more or less give us a bit of snippets on maybe like a cheat sheet, like a cheat sheet for the Chevening scholarship. And the reason I'm asking this is because quite a number of our students students and alumni have applied to the UK Chevening scholarship. I even know of some who actually got to the final stage, final interview, and for one reason or another they didn't manage to get past that. Maybe you can give us a few ideas around that. As you do that, also you may want to talk to us about language requirements in Europe. We get alumni and students asking, must we know how, must we speak German or or Swiss or whatever it is to study in some of these places. Also, we do get requests from our alumni and students applying out there for English proficiency tests, either sponsorship for the same or exemption letters for the same. You may want to talk to that. Thank you, Shiri.
All right, now Chevening, the cheat sheet. I honestly never know how to answer this question because for me, I applied for the scholarship on the very last day. Because again, as I'm being very honest here, I have this problem of pre-disqualifying myself. I'm thinking these requirements are a bit tight. I honestly don't want to put myself out there and get rejected. But then another trait of mine, I tend to go at the last minute. I wake up and I'm like, pata potea, I have nothing to lose. But in my experience, because it's a government scholarship program, so they're very much policy centered and development agenda. So they're also very, very clear, like in the call for scholarships, they're like, we are focusing on these areas and this and this and this, which I think is very important to note. So you really need to do your homework and realize, okay, so they're focusing on renewable energy if you're in that sector or that's your area of interest. And you really need to know what's the debate, like what's happening and where am I fitting in this whole thing? Because another thing, they're always like, okay, fine, this is from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. and I am a Kenyan. I'm here being interviewed for this position. Like, again, the question of why should we spend our money on you? Like, why should we bring you? And this is taxpayers' money. So are you worth the investment? And that's the thing, you know, like, look, what are they focusing on and why? Because this is something you have to answer, like, so it's renewable energy. Okay, that's that. This is the debate. This is where I'm coming from. What am I contributing? Because this is all policy agenda. You're dealing with the government body here, so it's probably different from when you're getting a scholarship from an education trust, because they might be more lenient in that. Okay, we sponsor everyone for everything because we believe in your vision. You know, you as Kevin. So we're investing in you as Kevin. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. But then these are people who are like, we are looking at you as a potential team player. And that's something you really need to have in mind. So what am I bringing into this policy agenda? Because this is mostly a sort of government to government interaction. So taxpayers' money, the British government, the Kenyan government, and the partnership in place. So where do you fit in? Like, you really need to make clear that you understand, you know, the current debate in whatever area you're looking to get in, and how you fit in. You have to prove your fit. And of course, that sounds very technical, which is very important. It's a very crucial aspect of it. But then again, I go back to the thing of being honest. Because you see, being a very technical thing, you might be going there, you know, full of technicalities that, you know, you, the scholarship applicant, gets lost. Like, you're presenting a lot of debates and agenda, but so where are you? Who are you? And, you know, how do you fit in all of this? I think that's all I would say. I think if anyone wants, I could put them in touch with other alumni who have been involved in the interviewing process. Maybe they have better insights. I have unfortunately not have had the opportunity to do so. But I mean, that's what I could say at this point. But I'm happy to forward or to connect anyone who's interested with alumni who've actually been in the interview panel, because I think they would be better placed to give you better insights.
Okay.
And
the second question, thank you. Yes.
So German, or at least or language requirements in general. Well, yeah, English, and so in this case, German. Exemptions and the requirements, I think, again, a bit of homework. Check the program you're applying for. There's always someone you can talk to, address your questions to, and that's always the best place to start. If it's not very clear, because generally the school might be like, okay, this is the University of, I don't know, Washington. We require everyone to do a language test. You don't know about the conditions and exemptions. So just talk to the program assistant or program manager, like, I'm Kenyan, this is what my language of instruction has been English. That is, or at least for me, when I got my scholarship, that was not a requirement, because, you know, you're Kenyan, you had your degree and your undergraduate, your high school and your primary education in English. But I think they changed that. I'm not sure if it was because I think after 2 years back, people were being asked to do the language course, the language test for the Achieving Scholarship. But it's always good to check with your program manager. Sometimes it's also the scholarship itself that asks you to do this language test. And I mean, just do it. If they say you have to do it, you have to do it. There's no, we might want to debate it as a political issue, but we don't get into that. But, you know, unfortunately, if you find yourself in that position and you really want to do this, that's the price you have to pay. It's not the best place to be, but it is what it is. But in most cases, we get exemptions as Kenyans. At least I know that much. So when it comes to German as a language requirement, generally, because, I mean, unless you did German and your German is very fluent, you would be applying for a program in English. Because also you don't have the time to master the language to the point of actually writing a thesis in German. And so you will find yourself, like I did, in a graduate school where English is the medium of instruction. Everybody speaks English. But of course, you need German to get by. And it's difficult. But of course, depending, there are people who can crack languages, all the better for them. But what this, for what I know for sure is the DAD and the CAD, they give you about 6 months of intensive language training. So before your program starts in October in the winter semester, or if you're starting in April, you get 6 months prior to that, to the start of your program, you get an intensive language training course, which is great because it's also the time that you acclimatize to the environment. You learn a bit more about how things work around here, without having to deal with all of that once you've started your program, because then you don't want to be dealing with too much. And should it be the case that you don't have these 6 months, depending on who your scholarship provider is, or if you're paying for it yourself, I mean, there's no school fees here, so you can go to the uni and register for the language classes, because they offer language classes, and then you don't have to pay extra for that. So I think that's something you can look into. You can attempt to get by with no language training. It all depends on what city you find yourself in. I mean, if you're in Berlin, you could survive, but then if you find yourself in places like some of us did find ourselves, you have to learn the language. And yeah, so did I miss something else? The people, the culture. Well. That's a different ball game altogether. I think we need a special session on that. We don't mix that into the scholarship talk.
Actually, that's okay. That's fantastic, because that question is very much reserved for Dr. Mumbi Vashira to now tell us a little bit about how is it out there. There's always this urge to actually really go out there. And there are many stories, some positive, some negative, some comme ci, comme ça, if I can use some French. And how is it? Talk to us about talk to the weather there, talk to us about the food, talk to us a little bit about the people, just getting by, language, racism, how attachments, family home attachments, etc. Very briefly, so that then we can close in with the parental. Carry on.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And I'll try to be brief, although this is something that can have its own webinar. So yes, but I'll summarize. I think, and as Sheila has said as well, and hinted at, you're entering into a whole different place, a different culture. People have grown up differently. So there are definitely going to be stark, differences that you will see. So I'll start with the easy one. The weather for me, I went in the middle of winter, February. It felt, the only feeling I can describe it as is being like if you were to enter a freezer. This is how it would feel. Okay, you go for weeks without seeing the sun, and you think at the beginning you're excited because you've never seen or touched snow, but then after some time you realize actually you prefer the sunlight. And I think for most people here, that will be their experience. So it's definitely something of a challenge to deal with the cold and the repressive atmosphere, because when it's very cold as well, your mood, is really down, you see. So I remember being told by the DVC, who is Dr. Gashenga, the trick is just go outside every day, even if it's how cold, just step out. And I find that is the feedback that I will give people. It helps. The other good thing, the good thing about the weather is that you appreciate seasons. So I loved the autumn because of the way the leaves change, and the sun was also kind of like less intense somehow, and really beautiful. So there are also those things to look forward to, the changing of the seasons and the beauty that comes with that. The food, so for me, Swiss food is, very close to German food. So lots of potatoes, cheese, bread, really, really good bread. So by the way, in terms of food, I really enjoyed it. But you see, there are also people who, you want your ugali every other day, you want your goat meat. Yeah. Also food, by the way, is something like you have to really think about in terms of your budget, because it's much more expensive than it is here, and it's hard to find food that we're used to getting. So like beef, for example, I rarely ate it or cooked it because it was just out of my budget. Yeah. So those are the things. There are definitely changes, but I would urge people to be very flexible with that, and to also go with the mindset of you will eat what they're eating and they're surviving. Yeah, so I used to carry, you know, my unga and stuff, but when it ended, it's still fine. I'm not going to, you know, be crying or crossing into other cities looking for unga ya chapati. Okay. Then in terms of the people, so now what I want to emphasize is that you have to, and I think it's easier. So for my view is that when you go in very young, you really need to kind of have some supportive mechanisms, and if they can come from home, the better, because you realize that you are Black. I'm not even saying Kenyan, because there's an identity around Blackness that exists outside, and many times it's not always a positive thing, especially in Europe, because you know, there are certain preconceptions that people have about Black people. So, for example, the city that I lived in was a small town, St. Gallen, close to Zurich, but small. So most of the Africans who were there were, you know, they had come, some had come. In fact, I was in Europe when people were immigrating en masse in there. So the first assumption is, did you come here on a boat? You know, how did you get here? When you say you are studying in university, people are very surprised. They're surprised that, you know, you are as exposed as you are, and that you have studied as much as you have. There's a preconception, and not with everybody, of course it's with some people, but unfortunately those are the things you remember, that people just don't know enough about Africa, about Kenya, about Nairobi. In fact, I was asked very interesting questions, you know, things like, so when I was looking for a second supervisor, I had a meeting with one, I hope I can be heard.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Sorry, I know at some point my internet was unstable. Okay. But just to finalize on that, I know I had this meeting where we were trying to see if we could work together. And he asked me, you know, are there companies in Kenya? Do you have, you know, listed companies? Do you have multinational companies? You know, things like that. A whole professor asking you something like this. But at the same time, there are people who are exposed, and even if they are not, they will, you know, go above and beyond to understand your perspective and your view. So you will always find these people, and those are the people who end up being your friends. You know, so coincidentally, I found that in my university, most people doing the PhD were from Germany, as much as it's a Swiss university. And we ended up being good friends with some of them because they were quite honest and frank about their lack of knowledge and curiosity. And I think because of that, and being very, I guess, real with each other, we were able to get to that common ground. But yeah, there are challenges. You have to kind of face yourself as a Black person and understand what that means and accept it and be proud of it. The final thing I wanted to say about the language was, it depends on the country, as Sheila has said. So I feel like, you know, there are certain cities where you can get by, you know, because also the good thing with Europe is that you can travel in within, and I did, and you realize, by the way, people are not concerned about your English. You go to some place in Spain, nobody is understanding what you're saying. So you have to sort yourself out. You have to try and understand the basics, and especially for the main things like medicine, asking for help, knowing where the utilities are. Those things are very important. And it also, I think, I've found for many people, it helps to bridge that gap, the perceived gap that exists across these cultures. If you do understand a bit of their language, it's a bit of a pain, but it helps you down the road, just to get by. That's what I would like to comment in brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Mumbi, Dr. Vashira, Bwana Paranta. Now, as you can imagine, we're already doing very well, also with time, because we've been managing to answer a lot of the questions that already come through. And at this point, I'd like to give Bwana Paranta this opportunity to, again, maybe just help our alumni and current students to sort of understand or appreciate, as you mentioned earlier, that it may not be the same for everyone, but because I'm getting this question a lot, kindly help to demystify or to advise those who are thinking about applying for their masters. When should they do it, especially for law school students? Should they go for it immediately after, before, etc? How do they go about it? And then maybe something else that also is important for our alumni and our students and basically our friends who've joined us in today, and this is to Paranta, does that Harvard postgraduate program add the value that you had perceived it would add? Does it change anything? Is it worthwhile? That whole experience. So those are my two questions from the panel. Sorry, from the audience. Paranta, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Before I start on the two questions, I just want to add one thing on what Sheila had said on the Chevening scholarship, but from a different for each country, I'd advise the audience, for each university that you're applying to, each university, most of them do have this university specific scholarships. So for any program that you want to apply to, just look through the programs first, what is available. Of course, there are those that apply on the entire country, maybe a Rhodes scholarship. But there are those you need to consider for each university that you're applying. On when should you apply for your, for your program abroad, LLM or any masters? I think this is really dependent on each person's experience. There's no one fit-all formula. And I'd say this because for lawyers, there are various nuances you'll need to consider. One, are you thinking of practicing law to begin with? Because if you're not thinking of practicing law, then there will be no need for you, for example, to have Kenya School of Law as a consideration. That it might make more sense to go straight and apply to your program. If you're thinking of coming back and practicing in Kenya, it's always, and I'm sorry to say this, most of the law firms do peg the remuneration whether you're admitted or not. So would you really want to finish your master's program, come back, your colleagues have already gone through the program, they already admitted, you're not admitted, and still you're going to a law firm which will not be paying you the same as your colleagues who've already been admitted, maybe paying you such a small amount, maybe, small amounts just because of the fact that you're not admitted and not because of what you're bringing on the table. So these are a few things that you need to consider. So again, there are other factors, the longer you wait, maybe, there are other things that tag along, which maybe family, maybe you've already gotten a trajectory that you want to pursue. So in my case, I thought it would be harder. The longer I waited, I thought it would be more difficult to apply it at a later stage. So that varies. But for anyone who thinks, who would like to practice as a lawyer, for example, I'd highly advise that you do it after while you're in Kenya School of Law. So that gives you room for, one, finishing your Kenya School of Law exams, but not only that, but also you should be hearing back from the programs while you're doing your pupillage. So by the time you go, in my case, I had to fly back to be admitted. So by the time I was finishing my program, I was already admitted and I'd already finished my program. So, sort of clear the two within the timelines without wasting any time if you can. On the second issue, on whether the program is really worth it, for me, I think it was worth it. It was worth every cent, largely because one is the experiences, leave alone, there's what you went out for, and it's, sorry, my laptop is going off, so I'm just connecting. One is the experiences you get. No one can really take that away from you. Yeah, you're meeting diverse, people from diverse backgrounds, and these people influence you in one way or another, and you influence them. You do influence them. Yeah, you do meet professors who you're able to forge lifelong relations. These are people who will influence how you think of issues, and generally, again, you do meet an alumni or you do join an alumni network that, does come in handy, at a later stage. And you do get some of this training, some of issues such as networking. One thing I came to learn of, at least in my program, they really push it as an agenda a lot, yeah. And there are many opportunities for you to learn this, how to network with the rest. And you discover actually that after a short while, of course, when you're beginning, everyone, when you're joining in the first time, first question is, you're all thinking, yeah, it's called, you feel that, are you really here on merit? There are many questions that cross your mind, yeah. You're wondering that, I think there's been a mistake made somewhere, yeah. Are you sure? And I came to discover that actually everyone in that room is thinking like that, So like for us, when we went in for the first time, the orientation, that was one of the key things that, they had to talk us out of, yeah. That every one of you is on merit, and actually you have conversations with your colleague, you discover it's not just you, and you get to settle in. And after settling in, it gets easy as you go along. Of course, like any new place, settling in, there are very many factors that you need to consider. If you have, like for us, we had other Kenyans that we were with, and we had already connected here. So by the time we went there, it was pretty easy to settle in. So I'd say whether it's worth it or not is dependent on what really you applied the program to, why you applied the program to begin with, yeah. If you applied, for example, looking to shift careers, and you did not get the shift, maybe in some aspects it might have failed you. But if you applied, for example, to get the knowledge and you do believe you got the knowledge you wanted, see, in that aspect it will be successful. So it depends. For me, I applied to get the knowledge. It came with extra additions, like that I hadn't thought of, the networks and the various experiences that I don't think maybe the current people who are doing it online might have missed on. Because of COVID, there are a few things that have changed. So it depends, but I think it's worth everything. Yeah.
Fantastic, Edward. Now, I think at this point, I want to quickly share a little bit about the university, Strathmore University, basically, and the offerings and what we have in store for you, especially our dear alumni. So very briefly, I want to begin with our scholarship, with our products at the Financial Aid Office. We do have 4 products at the Financial Aid Office. We have scholarships, we have student loans, we have graduate, we call it Grad Prep, so graduate preparation assistance, and then we do have bursaries. So it's very easy there for those joining us, those who would like to join Strathmore University on various scholarship programs, various, on financial aid, as some of our panelists. The way to go about it is basically to apply for admission to any of our programs or to your preferred program at Strathmore University. It could be a professional course, it could be the diploma program, or the degree, or now even the postgraduate program. So once you've applied through our admissions office on our page, basically, now you can actually be admitted online. The interviews, everything is done online, so you don't have to travel to the university. So once you get admitted to any of our programs, then you will get the opportunity to apply for financial aid. So now the minimum requirement for us as the financial aid office to consider you for financial aid office is your admission. And of course, this is the case with many other programs and other university institutions worldwide. So you get admitted, then you apply for either our scholarship or our student loan or our bursary, or now the grad prep. The grad prep is a bit different. I'm going to speak about it shortly. So at the moment, we are also processing scholarships or financial aid support online. So we have a link on the main university webpage. So if you go to admissions tab on the university webpage and you scroll down, you'll get to financial aid. And then when you scroll down, you'll see apply for the application process. Then you will see a link. And that link, you log in with your admission number and your ID number, the ID number or passport number you used to apply for the program. So once you lodge in your application, we look at it, and then of course we make a determination on the same and we get back to you. Now, what do we look out for? Many things, and a good number of things have already been spoken about by our able panelists. We are certainly looking for people who've done well, because we have very few resources. So we want to ensure that those resources go to, those who've really done the very best, or those who are going to make the best of those resources. So we look at your grades. We'll also look at other factors. For example, the financial status. We look at some of the recommendations you've received. If you are in high school, we look at some of the awards you won. We'll also look at your application letter, which is now the motivation letter, also referred to by our panelists. So here, it's a brief letter that you'll be writing to us, telling us why we should consider you, why we should give you this opportunity to study at the university on financial aid. Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, that's the way to apply to those three key products of the financial aid at Strathmore University. Then now there's the fourth one, which I think is very important, which my good friend and learned friend Buana Paranta referred to, which is our newest product, which is the Grad Prep. So the Grad Prep, graduate programs preparation assistance, this is a college counseling idea that was hatched in 2016 at the Financial Aid Office. And the idea was to support our students, staff, and alumni to apply to these scholarships that are available world over in some of the top universities globally. And so how does that work? As an alumni, as a student, as a staff, you can write to us, financial aid at strathmore.edu, and tell us, I'm applying to, say, Harvard, like Paranta did, or to St. Gallen, or to University of Manchester. And they require an application fee of, say, £75 or whatever it is, or £750, etc., or a number of dollars, etc. You may also write to us and say, I'd like to have my transcripts and application posted via DHL to these places. You may also write to us and tell us, I'd like for someone to review my motivation letter. And we may be able to share your motivation letter with some of our friends, like those on our panel, who have been, very critical in helping our students and staff and alumni apply for these places. So they could review your application. You may also reach out to us to get you references. So references, maybe you're at a busy audit firm, or you're working outside Nairobi, and you don't get that much time to come and see your professors or your former dean or the various mentors, etc., to actually help you get a reference. We can actually be that mediator in between, or we could be that friend that can actually write or get to the mentor or the dean or the staff member to get you that reference. We could also write you a reference as an office if we know you, maybe if you are one of us, beneficiaries, etc. So that is what we've been doing since 2016. I'm happy to report here that we've had very good success. We've had, Edward getting into Harvard. Of course, as you can imagine, our part is very little. The bigger part has to be done by the people applying, as discussed here by our panelists. But in our small part, we've contributed to getting, 2 Harvard scholarships. That was for Edward and Cecil, both from our Strathmore Law School. We got 3 New York University scholarships for postgraduate. This year already we have one also at New York who's been accepted, so she's just waiting for her scholarship, basically her scholarship communication. We've helped with a PhD to Cambridge. We've helped with a master and MBA in Germany. We've helped with LLMs in the UK, and in the States as well, Cornell Tech, LSE, London School of Economics, and the list keeps growing. or initially we did not have a budget for this, but the university has been very kind and has appreciated the response so far, and has been giving us has been expanding, growing that budget. So basically, this is an invitation, an open invitation to all our alumni today. If you're there and you've been moved to make an application, and maybe you'd want to take advantage of that offer from the office, kindly do reach out to us, write to us on financialaid@strathmore.edu, and we'll be able to guide you on the way forward. So that's it on that part. And at this point, I'd like to maybe welcome one or two burning questions from our audience, and maybe someone to just actually not from the chat, but someone to basically just get their mic on, turn on their mic and video, and you could raise your hand. I see you could raise your hand, or you could just go straight. My co-hosts will help me to identify. Do you have any burning question?
We've got some questions in the chat though.
Yes, we do have some questions on the chat. Yes, let's see. I can see one from Kevin Dambuki. Do these privileges apply to students doing professional courses at Strathmore? Yes. So you just actually need to be an alumni, a student, or staff of the university. I can also see there was a question on reaching out to the panelists, and yes, maybe I'll actually give them. I'll give them the last say 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so to each give us some closing remarks. But before I do that, I don't know if there's any other that I may have left out. Let's see. Tasio, let's see. Maybe Saulo, you can help me. Maybe there could be questions that may have been written to you directly. I can't see the one for Tasio.
Okay, I'll read it out.
Yes.
So when applying for scholarships, how do you make your scholarship stand out? And once admitted into a program, does one get a mentor to help them stay on track as per the goals of the scholarships? So I think any of the panelists can take that question. How to stay on top of the scholarship, and how to use mentors to stay on track.
Indeed. Could we hear possibly from yes, Dr. Mumbi?
Okay. So I was actually, in fact, thanks for the question, Tashu, I think. I was actually typing out the response to you, so it's good now it has been asked. So generally, it depends on the scholarship, but I have to say, in my experience, there was somebody who kind of oversaw all the government scholarship recipients for the whole of Switzerland. And we would meet occasionally every 6 months or so. And it wasn't like to find out how I'm doing or progressing. It was more or less, a friendly chat, just a check-in, yeah? So generally what you have to know is once you get that scholarship, the scholarship is fixed. If they tell you, so in my case, it was a 3-year scholarship maximum, and you have to have finished your program by then or look for alternative sources of funding. And you have to kind of know that is what you're working with. So it's really, they do provide some support, but most of the support is likely to come from the faculty, students, and any other networks that you're going to build in that institution. Some scholarships, even for example, the Strathmore scholarship for the master's program that I had to keep my grades at a certain level, and show consistent progress that was checked every 6 months. So if I didn't meet that criteria, then, you are kind of, your ability to stay in the program is again at question. So you need to keep yourself accountable. There are some mechanisms, but there are some that you will have to put in yourself. And that's where now, someone had asked about the home support. That's also where, especially when you're abroad, like for me, my dad would always be asking me, so where have you reached? Which chapter are you in? What have you, and he doesn't know about the area, but those kind of things help you to stay accountable so that you're actually able to finish in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So then I've seen one from Ezekiel. So basically, Grad Prep basically covers a number of things. So we support with, the graduate entry exam. So like the GRE, the GMAT. We do also support TOEFL, IELTS, the language proficiency exams. We support application fees. We also do support the postage as was indicated earlier. Of course, given the budget, we try to also work with you. So if you're applying to like 2 universities or 3, we say, okay, let's support the most expensive, and then you work on the other bit. For postage, that one, however many documents you want to send out there, we're happy to support you. For GRE and GMAT, in fact, we've not had many applicants for the same. We've not had as a good a number as we had budgeted for. So like this year, I'm very happy to support anyone who'd want to go for GRE or GMAT. I'd be really looking forward to, get someone go out there and maybe make a record, set a record out there for, an amazing GRE score, an amazing GMAT score, and show the rest of the world what Strathmore is all about. We'll hear from Rukia, and then we close. As I can see, we are almost going out of time. So Rukia, go ahead. Rukia Kasam.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Okay, I have a question and a clarification.
Go ahead.
Can you apply for a loan twice, provided like you have been given a loan for the first time and
Yes.
you are yet to clear the loan? However, there's still a problem, like a crisis facing your education curriculum. So you request for another loan such that you repay them, like you extend the repayment.
Thank you.
Because most
Yeah.
of us have been affected with the COVID situation, and we are thankful to the financial aid they awarded the loan, which is to be repaid in a certain time. So we are requesting if we could still be awarded another loan if scholarship failed, such that we continue keep on paying an installment payment of the loan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rukia, for that. Then let's very quickly hear from Yang, and then I will respond. Yang Izere, all the way from Burundi.
Yeah, I am. First of all, I want to appreciate the work that you do in the financial aid office for the Grad Prep program. So my question is related to like the requirement that when you're applying for scholarships or in one of those Ivy schools. So Dr. Sheila has told us about you have to know what's going on in the field that you want to apply on, like what you want to focus on, and also or what you want to contribute. So I want to know in terms of the requirement outside the having good grade in schools, let's say you want to apply for masters, what other requirements are they required in terms of maybe experience or other stuff that you look at?
Okay, thank you very much, Yang. So very quickly, let me respond to Rukia. Rukia, yes, you can apply. You can reapply for bursaries. I mentioned we have 4 products: scholarships, loans, bursaries, and grad prep. So you can, if you have received a loan, you can apply for a partial scholarship. If you have, so in addition, instead of 2 loans, you can also apply for a bursary. And the way to do that is to reach out to us the same way you did on financial aid office at financial aid office. Through our channel, financial aid office at strathmore.edu, and then tell us of your situation, and we can be able to give you whatever it is will help you manage your studies better. Young, I'll take this to Dr. Sheila, and then after Sheila, very briefly, we'll hear from like a parting shot from Dr. Mumbi and Paranta, and then we close. So thank you. Dr. proceed.
All right, Yang, so requirements other than the grades. Well, I think most of these scholarships are very, very open in communicating what it is that they are looking for. So they will be like previous work experience is a requirement or not, they make it very clear. Also, depending on the course or the master's program you're about to take, because I know like the other day I was discussing with someone about a media and communication program offered by Deutsche Welle in Germany, and they are very, very specific that they actually require someone who's worked for at least 2 years in the field. So in general, most scholarship programs will be very clear that it does, whether it matters or not, that you have previous work experience. And in general, most do not require, but you have to read very carefully, and in case of doubt, you can always ask. That's the thing. Never be afraid to ask for clarification, because you also don't want to invest in something and then you're later told, oh, I'm sorry, you unfortunately do not qualify because of ABCD. So in case of doubt, always ask. And yeah, so that's that. Kevin, if you just allow me, there's a question by Tatiana and Lawrence about scholarships and stuff. And I'd just like to sort of add to what Paranta said, that when you're looking, because of course you start with, I want to do this program, and then you search the schools where this program is provided, and then of course you have to sort of filter. So you're dealing, I don't know, you decide to apply to 5. Most of them, if not all, always have a section on financing. And that provides a fantastic start point, because they point you to where you can find scholarships. And then from there, you go to this, find yourself in another forum or another page, and it directs to another page. So I would say, as a start, always go to that. There's always a button there for financing. You know, there's coursework, requirements, and then there's always financing. Click on that, and that is a very great starting point if you are a bit lost on where to start looking for scholarships. They provide you information about the scholarship programs or providers that they work with or who have sponsored their students, which also then gives you a very nice place to start when it comes to then looking for scholarships. Yeah, and sorry, the last, because there was a question also by Ian on proposal writing, and of course I invite Dr. Vashira to add on to this. So he was asking about the do's and don'ts of proposal writing. And I think, of course, other than, you know, clarity, use very clear language, follow as well the instructions provided by the program or the school you're applying to, because they always tell you this is what we are looking for. Is one thing that I realize we never seem to realize we are making a mistake in, and that's when you're writing, because it's your proposal, it's your project, you know what you want to do, and a lot of things are very clear in your head, but you don't make them clear in the proposal. So it's like, you know, when you're talking to yourself, there are points you overlook because it's very clear. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to do it. This is where I'm coming from. This is where I'm going. Everything very A to Z, very clear in your head. But that make that A to Z very clear on the paper or on the sheet that you're working on, because the one who's going to read the proposal doesn't know exactly where you're coming from or where you're going, other than what you're presenting to them. So make it very, very clear, you know, because sometimes you get to read proposals and you're like, there's some missing information because it's clear in your head, but not very clearly put on paper. So I think I give over to Dr. Vashira to maybe add to that on proposal writing.
Thank you, Dr. Dr. Vashira, proceed. Of course, in this part of the world, we say muda umetupa kisogo.
Ni ukweli.
Yes, but we have really have appreciated the session so far. So let's hear from Dr. Mumbi, and then Paranta closing. Yes.
2 points. So first, to what Dr. Sheila has said, when you're, and I see this because I'm also now faculty, you, with your proposal, you have to feel, apart, many things have been said around clarity, obviously, precision, but let me just emphasize that you have to have a very compelling question or issue that you seek to address. It has to be interesting, it has to be insightful. People have to, when they read, feel like, oh, they really care about the research that you intend to do. So that must come out very strongly in the application. And some of the things you can do, apart from, of course, sending it to different people to read, you can compare with similar people who have made similar applications in the schools that you're targeting. So I find that there are a lot of resources, say in Oxford, that can give some indication about that. Also Harvard, the big schools, just to see generally when people are pitching their ideas, what are they talking about? And of course, to remember, this is a highly competitive process. You are not entitled to this. So getting even in that mindset of there are a lot of people who may have had more experience for one reason or another who will be there, means that you have to bring in everything that you can into your application and into your interview. So as much as possible, know your area, read widely, listen to many debates. As I said, Oxford, Harvard, they have very good even YouTube channels that are student-led that debate various issues that can help boost your application and how you present yourself. So that's what I think I would add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mumbi. Bwana Paranta, you can give us your parting shot.
So my parting shot is for everyone who's here. Don't be afraid to ask. There are many people who walk the path that you want to walk. Always inquire. And also, whatever you have drafted, try to share it as, 2 or 3 more people to review it and give you their thoughts. You never know. They might be, of course, conflicting, but at the end of the day, you're the final arbiter, the final decision maker. So you can choose what to take and what to leave out. And lastly, we are all available working with the financial aid office. We are happy to assist in whichever way we can to aid in your journey. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Maybe at this point we can clap for our wonderful panelists. And as we do that, I would want to, you can do that virtually. Thank you. You can see that. At this point, I want to take the opportunity to thank them most sincerely for making time out of their very busy schedules to share their wisdom and their journey with us. We do really appreciate, and we say a big asante to you, Dr. Mumbi, Dr. Sheila, and Bwana Paranta. May God bless you, and may you always find time for us when we call upon for your assistance. There are questions about reaching out to you, and yes, we'll be reaching to you through the alumni office and our colleagues in the financial aid office. At this point, I also want to thank the alumni office for putting this together and the association. And here I want to most sincerely thank our wonderful and amazing co-host, Bwana Saulo and Madam Anita Mwaneki. And of course, our most important people, our audience, our alumni, our friends, our students, our colleagues, our friends, our family who are joining us, who've joined us today, who spared time to be with us today. Thank you very much. We look forward to a most amazing year ahead. Can you take advantage of the offer that we have shared, we have extended to you? Kindly make applications as much as possible. Reach out to us. We will support you, and we'll be happy to, get you here to also share your experience. So over to you, Saulo, to close this. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for moderating this session together with our panelists, Mumbi, Sheila, and Edward, for sharing your experiences and also answering the questions from some of the panelists. As we end this session, I just wanted to iterate a couple of things that our panelists have mentioned in the course of their presentations. They've talked about networks. We need to have networks. And so the Alumni Association is one place where you have this network, and we keep growing the network of our alumni at Strathmore. Over 10,000 alumni. So these are people you can tap into for ideas to extend that network. We've been told we need to talk to people, ask questions, get ideas. There was a question of mentoring. We're trying to roll out a mentoring program where alumni mentor other alumni. And later on, we'll also have a program where alumni are mentoring students. So this is a network that we have to take advantage of. And then finally, in terms of resources, the Alumni Office will be putting out information on the website, on its website, on the social media platform about scholarships and opportunities that are available, so that then you are able to apply, to select one and apply. So watch out for the alumni newsletter, look at the alumni website and the social media platform where information may be shared on scholarships that become available. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for your patience for the last 1.5 hours listening to our panelists, and we hope that we'll also have other events that we can get into. As part of the university's theme of lifelong learning, we are going to continue having webinars online. So we will share the information by email, but also through our social media network. Thank you all. Do have a good afternoon and see you the next time.